What's going on, guys? Aaron over here, and welcome back to the Pitlane podcast, episode number 49 today for a bit of a Monaco Grand Prix preview and the usual roundup of F1 news in this off-race week podcast. You're joined with your usual host, myself, Callum, and Tom. I say usual, it's been a while since all three of us have been in a podcast together, and I think the last time was the other off-race one we had a guest in, so it's been a while, it's just been us three. But yeah, we're back with another podcast. I'm going to say it this time at the beginning. Callum, remind me, thankfully, just the beginning. Check out this podcast on SoundCloud. If you do want to check out the audio version only, you can download that off the SoundCloud, and then you can just have it on your phone if you want. But it's there on screen anyway the entire time. But let's get into this. So the Monaco Grand Prix, obviously, usually a bit of a different race in stark contrast to Spain, and so sometimes we can kind of predict maybe teams may jump up in performance perhaps. But for me, I think this year round, I don't know about you two, but when we're talking about the top three teams, Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes, I don't think this time round I'm going to confidently say Red Bull will make any sort of jump up. I think it will still be the two-horse race, Mercedes and Ferrari, really. Maybe Red Bull will be a little bit closer, but I still think they'll have their Red Bull comfortably in their pocket, to say.
Got to agree, and it's quite the contrast to last year, isn't it? Where we saw Ricciardo get his first ever pole position. Like, what a place to get your first ever pole position, and Red Bull to, well, that incredible strategy decision, which left Ricciardo sitting in his box for a couple more seconds longer, waiting for his tyres, which I think left the entire paddock hurting for the Honey Badger. But last year we had a sprinkle bit of rain. I'm not sure what the forecast is for this weekend. But if I had a little bit of rain this weekend, then maybe we can see Red Bull getting within the mix. But I think if there's no rain, I think we're still going to see the infamous battle between the Ferraris and the Mercedes.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting thing because there's been some talk about the whole wheelbase argument with Mercedes v Ferrari, and so Mercedes have a longer wheelbase. So if you don't know what that means, it just means the car, like from the rear wheel to the front wheel, is longer than the Ferrari. So that hurts them potentially in the slower speed corners and more kind of, tighter nitpicking corners. So that was why Ferrari were a little bit better maybe in Russia qualifying, on the limit, those shorter kind of burst corners you have in Russia. And so I think Martin Brundle and a few other commentators brought that up, that in Monaco, that's going to be very interesting to see how they do that. Things like the hairpin and stuff like that. You just have a slightly longer car. So it's a little bit almost trickier to navigate, like in a sense.
Well, what Lewis Hamilton originally said about the car being a boat at first sight, this is when you're going to really notice it.
Yeah.
So I think the Monaco Grand Prix is going to be interesting. I think the team that you wouldn't expect, like you said, you wouldn't expect to do particularly well gets a chance here. I've just looked at the forecast. It's going to be completely sunny all weekend, so no threat of rain. This is a track where I want to see McLaren jump the field. I know we mentioned more time on the podcast, people get sick of them, whatever, but they seemingly had a big upgrade coming out of Spain. That worked pretty well for one half of the garage at least. Apparently part 2 is coming this weekend. So with JB coming back, who knows, maybe if they get the first points at least, now's a chance for it. It's a sort of track that should suit their car because apparently their chassis is so good. So, yeah, I think McLaren could be a top 10 contender.
One thing I thought of, and literally just popped into my head, is talking about tyres, because there is one topic maybe a little bit later down the line that I've just remembered about. But tyres, obviously, they're going to bring the softest that they can, the ultras, the supers.
Oh yeah, that was.
But this is the thing going into it. I've just thought that, what about if, let's say a Perez starts in 11th, bolts on a set of soft tyres, or even super soft, they probably couldn't, and takes a set of super soft tyres a long way into the Grand Prix. We could potentially see somebody quite far down go very, very long in the first stint, make a very, very late stop and come blasting through the field. And I really do think we might see this. And maybe, I don't know, I think a lot of the teams will probably want to start on the Ultra Softs, especially if they qualify in the top 10. But it's probably worth noting that with the tyres being so durable, and with Monaco being just such a track that just doesn't eat tyres at all, it caresses them and makes sure they're okay. I think tyre strategy is going to be very interesting. It's obviously going to be a one-stop, but it's going to push, obviously, at the front, the Mercedes and Ferrari strategies to the limit, because it's one stop, so they've got to get it right. But they've also got to factor in the people behind that if they are on super softs, there could be some people coming through the field, especially as we mentioned last time out. With obviously, I think Mercedes had quite a bit of freedom and Ferrari with the lack of cars behind them. But Monaco, it could be quite an interesting race.
Well, we saw the graphic of like what the teams chose, and most of them all went like one soft, one super soft, or two super softs, and then the rest ultras. Like they pretty much didn't bring any of the other tyres. I think everyone, apart from I think Jensen and like I think maybe the Saubers, something like that. I can't exactly remember off the top of my head. Those guys were the only people who chose two sets of softs. I'm guessing Jensen chose it more for the fact he can use them in practice, he'll want to get a few more practice laps to just get the rhythm of it. So that makes logical sense. And then you got, I think some of the lower guys used two softs. And then pretty much everyone went with, I think, one or two super softs and then the rest ultras. So
Mercedes went with three. They're the team that's gone with the most. Equal with, I think, Sauber. So
3 super softs.
Interesting.
Yep.
Oh, right, okay. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting. So, it's looking again like the same sort of argument that we had from last week is coming back again. And, you know, you mentioned tyres, Cal. You know, we now know that Pirelli have changed the allocation for the British Grand Prix. They're not bringing the hard tyre anymore to that. That was going to be the second race. The third and final race that the hard tyre was scheduled to be in, they think, was Japan, obviously. And so they're going to say, we're going to hold off because we don't know. By that time, the cars could be so much faster. So we'll wait and see how abrasive they are on tyres. But now this is, you know, that shift and that kind of agreeance almost that, yep, we got it a little bit wrong here. We've basically brought 2 hard tyres for this entire season. We should almost have every tyre go a step softer in the compound. So that's why you're seeing everyone pretty much bring ultras. So yeah, I think Callum, you may be right. There may be like a Perez or, you know, just a midfield guy who basically feels a little bit, you know, okay, let's try something a little bit different. You know, it's Monaco, may as well try it. Go a little bit longer, be a bit of a train maybe towards the end. And then, as you said, go fast at the end, but we know it's Monaco, so that may also backfire. You never know. But,
I think, talking about Monaco and talking about teams that progress, one team who we don't think are going to progress, at least all three of us discussing before the podcast, is Red Bull. What's going on there? Because that car and that team, something's not right compared to when they're constantly battling Ferrari Mercedes last year.
Well, that new RB14 or RB13 B spec, that wasn't a B spec. That was not a B spec. We put so much hype behind that car.
Mercedes were just like, hold my beer.
The media put so much hype over that. I'll say that. We only talk about what we read. Okay, so it was the media putting so much hype into, you know, on Twitter saying, you know, it's going to be like an RB14, you know, it's going to be so different. And then they basically brought nothing. It was like a few little bits to the end plate. Like, I had people tweeting me, because obviously I did the aero videos at the beginning of the season saying, am I going to do one on the Red Bull now? It's like, no, there's no point. Like, it's not very different at all. Like, there's a few little bits and bobs on the side pods and like the barge board area, but it really wasn't that different. And it comes into now, I read an article after the Spanish Grand Prix saying Red Bull are going to have to call Newey back for a lot more help than they thought they would need. And so that goes back to, I think for sure, and I think a lot of us overestimated maybe the input Newey had on this car this time round, because obviously he sort of half retired from the F1 side because he was going to do the whole thing with the regatta or the boat or something like that, like with a team. Yeah. I can't remember exactly. Yeah. Team Sky, I think it was, with a boat and, you know, do that stuff. And then it was sort of between the off season, there was kind of talks of, okay, Newey maybe still staying in a bit of a more role in Red Bull because of the new aero regs and because of what they need to do, and they know that Ferrari and Mercedes is going to be good. But then after the Spanish Grand Prix, with the article saying that Red Bull are going to kind of have to call Newey back for a lot more help than they thought. Maybe that role Newey had really was that same condensed role that we thought initially with the whole, when it came out that he was going to retire from it effectively, like half retire.
I remember Ted Kravitz doing an interview with Adrian Newey saying, oh, has this finally got the Newey magic in it? And is it finally an Adrian Newey car? And, well, it must not be then, if they've got to bring him back more. Like, if they need more of him. Yeah. So, you can't really... It's weird because all pre-season it was, it's a Newey car, and then now is it just going to be a more Newified car? Like, I can't get my head around it.
It's almost like now when you really look at it from perspective, well, like we're just saying this, and I think, you know, Tom, you brought it up many times. Like, when you just look at the car, it looks so simple compared to the Mercedes and Ferrari, especially now with the new Mercedes. You know, the random the snow plow it's got on the nose and everything like that. it's almost like, why did we ever think that Newey was very involved in this car? Because it really doesn't look like it, because there's nothing there. And it's like, we're all kind of talking about, all three of us, like, when's the Newey magic going to come? I guess it was never really going to come, because he was never in that capacity yet.
Yeah,
and only now, or is it maybe being reported that Red Bull are kind of having to persuade him and call him back, being like, can you really come help us now? Because we have no, yeah.
Lost in the dark, basically.
Yeah, lost in the dark, basically shooting in the dark of where to go.
Well, one reason, which going back to tyres, was apparently Christian Horner said that the mule cars that they made at the end of last year to test the 2017 tyres, Red Bull thought the tyres would be different to what they actually tested. So they've almost like resorted to pointing fingers now, which I kind of think is a little bit bad. But they've basically just gone, yeah, that Italian company over there, they're the reason why we're doing bad. But then you look at Mercedes and Ferrari, and they're doing just fine with these new tyres, and they predicted them quite well for the 2017 season. So what went wrong?
Yep.
This is the thing. This is the major topic. Is why is there a massive question mark over Red Bull?
I do want to say, looking at that Red Bull mule car and then comparing it to, for example, Ferrari's one. If you remember last year when Ferrari were testing, they had that big ass rear wing with like how they are this year with like the base, the support thing on the end plates on the side, like the swiveled bent ones. So they saw that ages ago, and they were actually trialing that with the tyres on the old car back then, whereas Red Bull and Mercedes were using the basic rear wing, for example, which obviously that's a major part of the car's change for this season. And you can see maybe that's why a big reason why Ferrari, for example, have taken a big step forward this year, because they were actually trialing elements or parts of the car that'll be on this year's car on those sort of tests, like the rear wing, and getting data by running the bigger rear wing. I don't know what to call it, the wider prospect, whereas Red Bull, for example, they ran a very basic 2015 car with no aero complexity on it whatsoever. So, I guess it's maybe just a compliment to Ferrari, I guess, in many ways, and taking more advantage of the situation and actually taking advantage of the opportunity, unlike a Red Bull, for example.
I think it's compliments to both teams, Mercedes and Ferrari, for I think now is the kind of talk. It's more like, it used to, I think back in the day in F1, it used to be more, it used to be more like Newey figures, like one man is a genius in the team that propels it forward. And now you're kind of seeing it's Mercedes and Ferrari as a team, as a unit, a whole load of engineers in a room buckling down and really making a good car. And, Red Bull have not been like that as well. They've had a team around them. And in recent years, maybe the team's been dismantled a bit. Obviously it's old news at this point. 3 years ago, McLaren took Pedromu, kind of essentially Newey's right-hand man, I think it was said, and they took him to McLaren. And we saw like McLaren copying Red Bull's style of front wing pretty much straight away as soon as he arrived at the team. So maybe, behind the scenes, maybe there's some other guys that maybe Red Bull have lost that we don't know about, or maybe just the vibe's different now. They don't have the right-hand man and the main guy there every single time in the factory, because even if they're calling Newey back, I doubt he'll be back in the same capacity as he was before, because he said he wanted to take a break, he wanted to do something different, with the, boat racing or whatever he wants to do. So, it's not going to be the same vibe with Red Bull. Maybe Red Bull almost have to find themselves again, because they had this kind of, they went from a party team pre-2010, or 2010 as well, and then 2011, 2012, 2013, especially 2012 and 2013, they became a more serious team. Like you saw Brundle kind of say, they've kind of lost that kind of party vibe. They kind of got more serious now. And then going into this new era, it's almost like they have to refine themselves and find a vibe that works for them again.
Well, one thing I've just thought of is, okay, let's say they've got to bring back Adrian Newey, and they're solely reliant. And let's say the car's really good. Let's say at the end of this, they bring him back, the car really just starts to pick up, or maybe next year they produce a winning car. The issue you come back to though is, what about if Newey wants to leave again? Red Bull are relying so much on just one person. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Eventually, someone's going to drop kick that basket, and all your eggs are going flying, and they're going to drop again. So, this is the thing. I think Red Bull have kind of gone. Obviously, it was a success in 2010 to 2013, and whilst relying on this one person, but
I think Ferrari as well. It's another example of how we all thought they got rid of James Allison, and everyone's just like, ooh, next year, could be trouble. But somehow they've managed to find a solution.
Well, a lot of this car will be Allison's, a part of this car will be Allison's work, because they kind of work basically for the next year. So I feel like there would be some, some credit due to him for this year's car. But yeah, as you said, like picking up, it was more like we were like, how are they going to pick up the pieces then? Because there's going to be all this kind of tailed off kind of development that he was working on maybe with the team, and then they're sort of like, okay, we lost our leader. What do we do now? Okay, so and they seem to have kind of cobbled it together, I guess you could say. And
there's a new guy came in. Apparently, he's like an Italian guy, and he did a good job. I think his name's Mattia Bonotto.
Right.
But then obviously, like the Mercedes Barcelona upgrade, they say a lot of that is Alisson's work. Those are things that he's spotted that he's wanted to put on the car.
Yeah,
well,
because he's been there since March.
Some things
so...
left over from Ferrari, and obviously he's got a great insight into what that 2017 car, the Ferrari 2017 car, and where they worked up from that. So he can't carry over projects because that's just not how Formula 1 works. That you won't be able to just take something off a Ferrari and put it on a Mercedes, but he'll have the ideas behind it and have the concept.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
he will be able to morph them into a Mercedes way. And well, if that massive upgrade from going into Barcelona was most of James Allison's work, he's got to work quick. Like he's really got to work quick, and we could argue that the update worked because they won the race. So that's what really matters.
Shows the resource of Mercedes as well, just to be like straight away bang, biggest upgrade of the paddock. You can see clearly where the money is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still not convinced though how much input Allison would have, especially in this case Ferrari's car, just because of the fact they said last year's Ferrari car was completely his car, and I mean that did what it did. Obviously, it didn't develop as expected because obviously he left the team, but the actual design of it definitely wasn't.
Well, it started off pretty good. It just fell flat. They didn't continue the development as much as they needed, and let's be honest, they bottled a lot more of their strategy. They could have actually done a lot better last season than they actually ended up doing. But yeah, so we talked about kind of top three teams. I guess we'll get back to them a little bit later when we do the actual predictions. I think that's something we've been doing quite well, so we'll get back to that. But talking more down the other teams, we've talked about McLaren already. Force India, they've been doing absolutely brilliantly this season.
About them. Yeah.
And comparing their season to last season, like when you look at the TV coverage and stuff, you wouldn't think they're like exceeding their last season spectacularly, but they really are. Points wise, I think it's 53 right now, and I think last season it was 16. Yeah, so it is ridiculous how much they've actually taken up the challenge of 2017, where there's so much talk. We talked about it as well, that because there's maybe so much money that's needed for these new cars, and so much more development. Will they finally slip and kind of stop this upward trajectory? But they've just continued it, and they've been doing fantastically. And for someone like Ocon as well, who said at the beginning of the season that he wanted to just try and score points as many races as he can, he's matched his teammate in terms of they both scored points every single time, 2-2 like that. And obviously Barcelona was a great one for them, albeit Verstappen and Bottas going out helped them get those positions. But still, it would have been, even with those two in the race, it still would have been another solid one to match what they've done in the previous four. They've done an amazing job. And at Monaco, I don't know. It never feels like at Monaco that's a weak track for them. It's kind of just the same old kind of. They'll try and do their best. They'll try and get those last few points that they can and get in the mix in P6, P7. So
I highlighted it in I think that's like a month ago or something. I can't remember if it's preseason testing or just Australia, but I dropped a picture in like our group chat of their front wing.
The
they've got a lot. They've got a lot of drag on that car. So there's definitely. It's not like they're not one of these low budget teams who go for the low aero approach. They've definitely got enough winglets on that car to keep that car sticking to the Monaco road. So
they
could definitely be
in the back.
I mean, put it this way, this is a good opportunity for them to jump Williams, for example, this weekend, because Williams aren't a car that has a lot of bits and bobs in the car.
Williams have always struggled at Monaco. It's just guaranteed that if it rains or if it's Monaco. If anything, last year was their worst nightmare because it was Monaco and it was raining, so they really did struggle. But no, I think Force India have just had the basic, like the dream start, and especially going into the season when there was a lot of rumours around the fact that the car being overweight, this, that, and the other. There's their driver lineup. They've just been performing. Obviously, losing Nico Hulkenberg hasn't affected them at all. It's only been the only thing that Nico Hulkenberg has done is just helped Renault. It's not been a disadvantage to Force India. And the only bad thing they've had so far this season is that it was €25,000 penalty and
Fine,
fine
for the
numbers, which I think they have moved. I think they finally.
Yeah,
they have.
I think it was something to do with the sponsors because they've got a lot of sponsors on that car. I'm looking at a picture of it now, and on that front wing they've got a lot of sponsors. So I can see why they had trouble fitting the
be like
big number in.
Contracts for like.
To be fair, I completely agree with the fine. It's like I don't get the point of having the number on the flat part of bodywork, which you're not going to see on TV.
Yeah, it kind of
it's always nice to have it on. Like Mercedes also have it now so high up that you can barely see it. It's like it's nice having it on the front so you can see it, and the new one looks much better. And also the way they've worked in the three letters, like the initials of the standings on the shark fin, also looks very nice. So their car,
all round the new livery changes last race were very well received, and also I think it's worth mentioning Haas, who have made a new livery for the rest of the season. It's kind of disappointing actually from Haas because they've just made a grey car.
They removed the red and the black as well, so it's really just grey all round.
They just got the saturation side and they just dragged it down to minus 100. That's what they've done. So
it's kind of disappointing because we've got enough.
It's kind of funny because didn't Gene Haas say that they wanted to make the car, or Gunter Steiner was like, we want to make the car look more visible. Let's make it grey
so
more
it blends into
more
the
like
circuit.
Yeah. Stealthy, kind of blend into the tarmac.
I mean, I think it'll look pretty decent actually. I think that the colour of grey they've chosen on the front, like to replace the red, it's not white. It's like a greyed out sort of whitish colour. I think it'll look alright, but you just won't notice it. I think it suits the shark fin a lot better because the shark fin's got that messy old jaggy pattern going on, so the colours will match up a lot nicer because the red looked a bit out of place. But yeah, no, we'll see. I think it'll look cool, but eventually it'll be like, it just looks like a tarmac, doesn't it? So it'll fade away.
I've seen a lot of complaints just saying, another car that's grey, and it's almost like they've just taken up the spot that McLaren left.
Honestly, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but if you Google their NASCAR, I think it was this season, their Haas Monster Racing NASCAR, their livery on that car is absolutely unreal. I think it's this year, if not last year, 2016. If they could just apply that to the F1 car, that would be insane.
Yeah, I think we're getting there. We're slowly getting there with colours, but then one team had to let us all down, which is a bit of a shame. But I think now we can probably speak more about the more beefy topic that has come out, and it's a lot to do with the strategy group and Ross Brawn and his little group of engineers, and it's been quite well received in some aspects, and some people have been moaning. But the one topic which I think we all three of us agree on is Ross Brawn decided that why have we only got 6 of the 10 teams attending these strategy group meetings? Why not just have all 10? Which, when you think about it on the face of it, why aren't they all 10? What's wrong in Toro Rosso going Haas?
Because Bernie.
I don't get. That's the thing, though. Why would he have put that in place in the first place? That's what I don't
because
get.
He wanted to get equality. He was like 6 votes for the team, 6 votes for somebody else, and 6 votes for something else to keep it equal across the board. Because apparently, they have like a set total of votes. But I completely agree. Now that Bernie's not there anymore, scrap the whole system, get the whole teams to vote. And I saw loosely, I think Chase Carey mentioned this week about by 2020 having properly looked at the cost cap situation and trying to really push that in and try and stop the royalties for teams like Ferrari, for example. So it seems like finally now the FIA are getting now down to that sort of area, that street of finances in F1 and trying to get down to the nitty gritty and try and sort things out. Yeah,
sort it out, equalise it out. Yeah, that's promising to hear. That also, like, it just seems like more and more every race weekend they're kind of almost like, okay, we can probably bring the plans forward by a little bit, and it's it's good to see that they're doing it. Stuff rather sooner than later, almost. But it's not like it's not like the vibe that they're rushing it, is it? It's sort of like they're looking at it and they're they've set like targets that are 3 years in advance, and it's actually a real big positive that they're able to maybe shift it maybe by half a year, something like that. So
yeah, well, I mean, with the whole 21 Super Bowl concept, the fact they want to get this cost cap thing sorted out by 2020, and then having the new engine regs by 2021. Basically, for the 2021 season, we could be looking at a very tasty F1, especially if things go according to plan and teams don't pull out and new ones come
forward.
in.
Yeah,
so,
but it also, to think about it as well, obviously by getting the giants of Formula 1 in, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, the big spenders, obviously they're not going to say anything about cost cutting. Like, why would they care? If they're winning, then why, and they're forking out all this money, they're massive manufacturers, why should they care?
Normally,
obviously, the only team that really can represent low budgets is Force India in the 6. I think.
I think a good example is Mercedes would have always been in favour of a cost cap until the season. If they'd said it, they'd put it in this season, and then you see the thing they brought up to Barcelona, which is more like a spaceship, then could they have pulled that off with a cost cap?
Probably not. We probably could, if anything.
Therefore, will they be against it? I'd say now, yes, more than past years.
We could probably see the car, if there is a cost cap come in, the Australia car will look very similar. Or the cars won't evolve as much in a year, which in one way it's kind of bad because we like to see these massive upgrades come in. But if it's for the whole round of the sport,
I think the argument is for the cost cap though is in a way it's kind of pushing the teams harder to still evolve the car as much as they want, but do it in a bit of a more economical way.
I think,
and they're having
also
to pick their races.
The way I'd put it is, I don't think you have to restrict development necessarily. I think also it's just the fact you have to spread out the prize money more equally. Yeah. Then you can take other measures, but I think the prize money has to be.
I've always found it very absurd in a way that you can have Ferrari do poorly last season and they end up making more money than Mercedes over the year because of their I don't know how you call it, loyalty, heritage, that's the word, heritage bonus of being the longest running team in F1. And it's like, I get the arguments for it, but there's a lot more cons than pros for them getting that heritage bonus. It can be severely reduced,
put it that way.
I don't mind them having a little bit of a heritage fun, but not as ridiculous as they get. It's pretty much enough for them to always earn more than Mercedes every year, despite Mercedes trouncing them in the last few years. That just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't mind, chuck a good 10 million on them. That's fine. You've been here for a long while. You are you're pretty much half the brand of F1. So here you go. Here's 10 million. But not like 31 million where now you're earning just a bit more than the reigning world champions.
The winners,
This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, on the face of it, doesn't look good. But also, this is the thing that's been impressing me about Ross Brawn is just the fact that he's just been getting on with it, and we've been saying that every single race or every single off-race podcast, I think we spoke something about Ross Brawn doing something or saying something, and not only has he said that he wants all the teams to attend the strategy group meetings, he's recruited new engineers as well. Some like the veterans, the real experienced people. I think there's some names here, like James Somerville, don't know whether that rings a bell, formerly of Williams, Toyota and Lotus, Craig Wilson from Brawn and Williams. There's some solid group of engineers, and they're making this little small group, which are going to, hopefully, take the regulations in the right direction. And I'm looking at the comments on motorsport.com, and a lot of people are saying, oh, it's becoming an engineer sport. I'm like,
always been that.
It's always been an engineer
half
sport.
and half. It's always been half and half.
Why is it a bad thing that there's a little group of people making a car which can race? Like, if in order to make a car that can race, you need a set of engineers to make that car and make it raceable.
Yeah. Now, this is
only the engineers that know this.
Yeah, we said this beginning of the season. It's a very, very good idea that they're finally going to actually take some science into making the regulations and really test it for themselves before they tell all the teams that, okay, this is your new regulation set. To be like, okay, so this is the baseline car that you guys can design for, a good overtaking car, and then it's really just up to you how much development you put on. And then I guess, there's a point where it's like, okay, now we can't control everything of like how much bits you're putting on the car, and so therefore how much dirtier and drag you're making it. At some point there's a line to draw where it's like, then you're getting to the territory of basically making it a spec series or governing what they can do. But if they can make a baseline car where it's like, this baseline car should be good for racing, there you go. That's what you're designing to, the parameters. You may find something clever to do that may give you an advantage, and that's your prerogative to do. So
exactly. So I think it's hard not to get into other debates with this sort of topic, but I think just appreciate what we currently have and the new system we have, and the fact that they're doing such good stuff, and they've only been in power for like 8 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's a ray of sunshine.
Exactly, just appreciate what we have, but me and Cal are running a little bit tight for time, so before we drag on any longer,
we'll start to wrap up. I will say one last point. I will say one last point on the whole Ray of Sunshine. It was good to see that at Spain they introduced the whole F1 fan festival sort of thing, where they had they made like proper building stuff there with music stuff, bars. They had
and the F1 experience thing in the car.
Yeah, the F1 experience.
Poyo getting in the car.
The two-seater cars.
Oh my god, the throwback. Zol Baumgartner driving that, and Paul Stoddart, the team principal, Minardi throwback back in the day. I was like, whoa. Apparently, Paul Stoddart, who used to be the Minardi team principal, like really pushed that project.
Yeah, no, he's the one running it. He's the one running it.
He was the guy who infamously, I think it was Indy 2005 when the 6 cars running. He went on a massive rant on live television using a massive amount of expletives, saying it's a joke for F1, showing that even when they were the littlest team with no money, that wasn't the right thing to do. So if you haven't seen it, I do urge you to go check it out. It's on YouTube. It's an incredible interview on Dutch TV where he just swears his head off. So he's one of them good guys in the paddock.
Yeah, but that point. Just good to see that. That's also another thing that's coming in. They're trying to improve that Super Bowl factor every single time now, and they've done it quite early. I think they were saying they were going to the whole F1 experience. Stoddard was saying they were going to plan it for Austin, USA in October, and then they brought it all the way forward to Spain because they're like, let's get this going. Because after China, they didn't want a repeat of like this just kind of boring race weekend for fans on Friday and Saturday. So they kind of just sparking it up. So by the time we go to Silverstone, I don't even want to imagine what they're going to have planned. Could be pretty damn cool. So we'll wrap this up. So predictions then quickly for the Monaco Grand Prix, top 5 obviously, and pole position. So pole position, I'm going to go for Hamilton. I think I'll have it at Monaco. The race, I have no clue race-wise.
Well, I'll let you think for a little bit. I'm going to go pole.
Okay, you go.
I want Kimi to get pole just because he's been so close the last 2 races. So actually, no, I'm going to say Kimi. Screw it. He's been so close the last 2 races. I'm going to say he's going to get it again. He just doesn't have to bolt at the final sector and he'd be all right. So I want to say Kimi, especially a track where you do see the odd surprise like Ricciardo getting pole last year and infamously my boy getting pole in 2012 out of nowhere. So,
I'd probably say Vettel get pole. I feel like of all the places that the old pole meister, the way he used to hook up a lap, and with the Ferrari looking a little bit better and potentially just looks like a car that will suit Monaco, I think Vettel might have pole.
All right, top 5. I'm going to go for Vettel, Hamilton, Raikkonen, Bottas, Verstappen. That's my top 5.
Right,
I'm going to say Kimi, Vettel, Hamilton, Bottas, Perez.
Oh, yeah, I think you've got I'm going to go Hamilton, Vettel. Who do I opt for? I'll put Bottas on the podium, Kimi, and then screw it, Ocon. Ocon will get a top 5.
All right.
I'd like to see him
you guys going for a surprise P5? Red Bull have some misery
for a
again
second,
in Monaco?
for a second there, I wanted to say JB Orlando in 5th, but I just... I'll wait.
I don't think that's going to happen. Nah, mate, he's going to win. All right, so that's been the podcast 49. If you have enjoyed it, hit that like button. Let us know what you thought of anything we talked about in the comments below. As per usual, check us out on SoundCloud. Subscribe to this channel for the podcast. Check out these 2 in the description. And also our Twitters are above our name every single time. But I hope you guys have enjoyed that. We'll see you guys for the next one at the Monaco Grand Prix Review Podcast. Don't know how many of us are going to be here. Might just be me and Tom potentially because I think Callum has work on the Sunday, but we'll see. But I hope you have enjoyed this one.
It might be a late one.
Maybe.
It might be a late one.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you guys next time.